we have right now is there's fewer and fewer men that are hypergamous mates for women. So if there's a much smaller pool of guys, then what you have is you have a bunch of women competing for.
Okay, this is Bartlett's, is it Steve Bartlett? Diary of a CEO? Yeah.
For the same men. And then a bunch of guys get ignored. But what I also see is that those top guys are having a hard time deciding. So I feel like in my coaching practice as a dating coach,
trust as a dating coach. Okay, stop right there. The show's over. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. No, they're not confused. They're just spoiled for choice. They don't know who to schedule because there's so many lining up for them.
I'm working with a lot of women who say, what do I do? I've changed my profile the way you said I should. I took your class, but I still feel like there's just not enough great guys. And then I work with these CEO men who are having such a hard time choosing.
I love how this CEO men like Mike Sartain. Mike Sartain has no problem choosing whoever he's gonna, very high value guy. Doesn't have any problem choosing who's going to come over tonight, right? Probably has. I bet if I hit up Mike right now and say, "Hey, Mike, you got a date tonight? You got some chick over here?" He'd probably tell me, "Oh, she's here right now." You go over to Panorama. She just left. Yes, they don't have any problem with that. And I love how we have to qualify bird hands. White power, right? We have to. I love how we have to. Not me. I didn't come up with that. I love how we have to qualify them as being these high-powered CEOs. High-powered CEOs are already marrying other. I mean, statistically speaking, they're already getting married. Those aren't the guys that they're worried about. Those are who those women want in her quote unquote practice. Those are fucking the dark triad guys. Those are the Andrew Tates. Those are the Tinder swindlers. Those are the guys who are showing, less interest in those chicks, because why would they? They're spoiled for choice. Why would they buy? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And so I think we really have this exacerbated problem where so many women are competing for the same men, and then a bunch of guys are getting ignored. And then
where have we heard this before? I'll wait. Where have we heard this before? Let's see. Would that be let's see, the 80-20-4.5% rule? See, here's the thing is they're gonna jump into all this. And by the way, that's Scott Galloway. That's on the other side of the table, the middle of the table right there. They're going to start popping off about, oh, well, it's a socioeconomic this and da 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 da. No, this is just how hypergamy works. 80% of men are invisible, 20% are the maybe. And then there's the 4.5. Oh my God, it's Justin Waller, it's Jason Momoa, it's Jack Reacher. Was it right? Alan Richardson. Alan Richardson, right? We got to add him to the list now. Oh my God, I can't get Alan Richardson to commit. What do I have to do? I've changed my profile. He's just not forthcoming anymore. We had one really good date and I fucked him, but now he doesn't return my calls anymore. Please help. What they're not going to tell you is they're not going to tell you how hypergamy actually works. The thing is it's not the 20%ers that she's hoping they'll get with. It's the 4.5%ers that will only do. That's why. It's not guys being assholes about it.
And what ends up happening is, where do those guys go? And they go online. That's what you see. They go to porn. They go to porn, or they go to Reddit. I mean, I love Reddit, but they're really going to some of these red-pilled communities. And so what you're seeing now is...
And receiving an education in female nature that you would never, that Steve Bartlett will never put on his show. He'll put Destiny on the show 2 or 3 times to tell us about the state of masculinity, but he won't go to anybody who actually knows what the fuck that they're talking about, and including these two right here.
It's just men really opting out of society. So when you go back to that stat, 1 in 7 young men in the UK is NEET, not an employment, education, or training. They have just opted out. And as Scott says, there's nothing scarier than a single man.
Yes, because if they get together, they fuck shit up. All you'd have to do to, if you wanted to start civil unrest in the UK or anywhere else for that matter, ban porn, ban weed, take away video games from them. You will see just how motivated those guys are. Suddenly, all those of that 1 in 7, it becomes 1 and 2. You know? soon all of those guys, when you take away those sedations, yeah, the only reason we have those guys is because of the sedations in the first place.
Young single man. And so we are just creating a lot of these angry young single men who are saying, well, this is rigged against me. And so that's why I am worried about the rise of people like Andrew Tate. And if we wonder where the
because the red pill begins and ends with Andrew Tate, right?
a lot of these angry young single men who are saying, well, this is rigged against me. And so that's why I am worried about the rise of people like Andrew Tate. And if we wonder where are the dads, where are the men? Well, men are finding these father figures, but they're finding them online, and they're not the father figures that I would choose for the majority of.
Sorry, did you catch that? That I would choose. Why are you the authority on this? Why is Scott Galloway the authority on this? Why isn't Andrew Tate the authority on this? Why am I not the authority on this? So from your perspective, from her perspective, from Bartlett's perspective, from Scott Galloway's perspective, whatever, we're all in agreement that it should be a certain way. What the fuck is that way? I love it when people say, well, we need men to, we need fathers to teach these boys proper masculinity or some variation of that. We need to have, or I hear this all the time from Dr. Richard Reeves. He was just saying something to the effect that he was hoping that there could be some sort of initiative, I don't know whether it's in the US or the UK, to hold boys back 1 grade so that they could have more time to mature or something like that. And I'm like, no, fuck you. Let's put more male teachers. Let's incentivize male teachers instead of having them raised as defective girls. And you won't have to hold them back a single grade level, because all we do is repress our boys when it comes to education. And I was happy to put these stats up there. There was one experiment that they did where they would grade reading levels of like students, like teachers would grade reading levels of certain students higher if they didn't know that the student was a boy. If it was a blind, like if they didn't know it was a girl or a boy, they would grade that particular paper based on the merits of the paper. If they knew it was a boy or they knew it was a girl, they tended to rate the boys lower than they did the girls. Why is that? Because we live in a gynocentric society. That's why. So when we talk about, oh, this is not the way I would have them do it. Well, how would you have them do it? That's what I would love to ask this chick. Well, so what would that be? Tell me what you think proper, good, positive masculinity. What does that fucking look like? I've asked Dr. Richard Reeves this too. They can't tell you either. They won't give you a definitive answer to that, because that answer sounds a lot like being a bitch. It sounds a lot like being female. A more perfected male is more feminine to them, rather than embracing masculinity in all its aspects. I've said this before, there is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There is only masculinity and the aspects of it that are complementary or are detracting from a female imperative. So, as I said before, the same masculinity that causes the firefighter to run into the burning building and save the baby from the burning building and run back out with it is the same masculinity that prompts that kid to go and do those dangerous jumps across, how they do those jumps across the high rises and do base jumps and do bungee jumps and do like or I know what it was, jumping like way off a cliff diving into the water. I see these videos all the time. That freaks me out. I'm waiting for the one where the guy miscalculates and he's like right onto the rock. They never show those ones, but like they'll find these places, bodies of water to jump into, and they're so scary high, and then they jump like, would you do this? No, of course you wouldn't. And they take a rock and they throw it out there to get to judge. Okay, that's how far out I need to jump. Not to die. I have to be the rock. So then they go out and jump. That's the same masculinity. You just think it's toxic because it's not serving a female imperative. It's not saving a fucking baby. It's using it as a guy wants to use it. And that, again, goes against what Patrick Bet-David was saying, and it goes against what this chick is saying. Who gets to decide? Remember the video that I showed about like, oh, men should be shamed. And if you feel shamed, then you're honorable. Who gets to decide what I feel shamed about? Who? Me. That's who. Me. I get to decide that, not you. You don't get to tell me what real masculinity is. You don't get to tell me what the kind of masculinity that you would agree with. I get to decide that for myself. And that's what scares the shit out of Scott Galloway, this bitch, Steve Bartlett, Patrick Bet-David, Tom Bilyeu, all the rest of these guys who want to be in this space, and they're just dipping their foot in the water here, in the red pill pool just a little bit, because they know there's sharks in there. Rollo Tomasi is one of those fucking sharks. I'll come up and drag your ass back down into the water because you don't want to talk about the stuff that is substantive. You don't want to talk about, you don't want to be asked what's your definition of a good positive masculinity. They don't want to have that conversation. They want to go into friendly territory.
And so I'm really worried about this because I feel like women are saying, guys, you need to step up because I can provide and I don't need that from you. And guys are not prepared to rise to the occasion.
What are women looking for? Scott talked about height.
Yeah. So I would say, I work at Hinge, but I do think that apps have perpetuated this issue around height, because if you can set your height filter to something, then you might set it higher. And then it's as if you have the dating app as a club and you're literally having bouncers that prevent a bunch of guys from even getting into the club. So many women in the US set their height filters at 6 feet.
Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't think it was about height. I thought it was about socioeconomic. I thought it was about CEOs. Is positive masculinity being 6 foot high? Should we go to get the tape? We got the tape now. We got the tape up on the wall. I got one of those measuring. What is it? Measuring tape? It's a chart. It goes to like 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like top one is 7. It's like the kind you see like if you're running out of like you just bumped off a 7-Eleven and they want to tell how tall the perp was. So we got it right over here on the wall right now. That's basically what it is, right? It's like so if I'm under 6 feet, then what am I supposed to do? You got to be more positive. You got to make more money, right? You got to what is it? What's your positive masculinity thing? You work at Hinge for fuck's sake, right?
But only 14% of men in the US are 6 feet or taller. So what happens to the other 86% of men? And women are saying, where's my guy? It's like, well, he's not even showing up on your app. And so a huge thing that I push women to do is to change their height filters and just say, there is nothing that proves that you're going to have a successful long-term relationship if the guy is higher. I'm married to a short king. I love it. I feel like I really found this gem. And I think that so many women are missing out on great potential partners because of things like height.
Scott's point as well about they will date.
So it is biology, right? And I love how it's like, oh, these guys need to take responsibility and man up and all this. It's like, but what if I can't because I'm under 6 feet tall? I'm 5'11" for fuck's sake. I don't even meet the minimum height requirement. Okay. And I'm 1 inch below it.
One of the men in the top 10%.
Yeah.
Sleep with him potentially, and then that kind of adjusts their standards and they expect all other men to meet that standard, but there isn't enough men to meet that standard, is there?
I haven't specifically heard that. I mean, there is a lot of evidence around a sort of mating that people sort of have an internal sense of how attractive they are and that they end up with someone similar to that. But a sort of mating is different than hypergamy, which is really this idea, as Scott said, that women tend to date horizontally and up and men date horizontally and down. So if you have 2/3.
Okay, it doesn't actually work that way, baby. Okay, here's what it is. If you have a woman who is a 2 on a 10 scale, she wants 7, 8s, and 9s. If you have a woman who's a 3 on a 10 scale, she wants 7, 8s, and 9s and 10s. You have a woman who's a 4 on a 10 scale, she wants 7, 8s, and 9s. You got a woman who's a 5, 6, or 7, she wants 7s, 8s, and 9s. Even the 7 is not going to work out. They don't want hypergamy never seeks its own level. Period. End of story. That's why this is sort of mating bullshit. It might have been something that had some sort of merit to it prior to the sexual revolution. Now we are in an unregulated sexual marketplace. So we don't go 10s get with 10s, 9s get with 9s, 8s get with 8s, 7s get with 7s. That's not how it has ever worked. Because if it did, women would not be going for the top 4.5% and seeking them out, and to the point where the only those kinds of men are worth taking any kind of initiative to meet in the first place. She should know this. She just said it 5 minutes ago in the very intro of this video. She should already know that. Assortative mating used to, from a social perspective, it might have had something to do in a localized sexual marketplace. Sure, maybe so. But all that shit is gone. Women are independent of men anymore. So what do? They revert to type. Hypergamy. That's why. Hypergamy has always been women's primary mating and sexual strategy. Assortative mating was what they were forced into in a regulated sexual marketplace. By regulated, I mean they had regulation between eights get with eights, and this was relatively true, right? Though a lot of people want to say, well, if you are a CEO or you're like college educated people tend to get with college educated people. Why? Because their local sexual marketplace happened to be college. It happened to be in the proximity. I'm a co-ed, you're a co-ed. Hey, we're both together in the same college. Maybe we're going to meet each other, and then this is a dating or a mating market. Rob Henderson likes to talk about, what is it? Sort of mating, but also the luxury beliefs, right? He's the luxury belief guy. But every now and then he wants to dip his toes into the red pill because that's the new hotness right now. That's what gets eyes on the screens and click-through rate right now. But even he has been talking about assortative mating. And you'll know what's funny is once we had put the lie to mate switching hypothesis, once there was too much evidence against it, even Mack and Murphy proved the fact that dual mating strategy had more merit than mate switching hypothesis. Still, like through research, through experimentation, through just observation. I keep throwing this out there. It's like the Steve Harvey effect. His I guess his ex-wife, but his wife cheated with the personal trainer or the bodyguard and the personal chef. Didn't cheat on him with Jeff Bezos. Didn't cheat on him with like a guy who was a higher tier than he was. Didn't switch up. Cheated with a guy who was the taekwondo, or was it Brady, Tom Brady's ex. Got with the jiu-jitsu instructor. Tom Brady is a pretty fucking high value man. I dare say she did not mate switch up. If anything, she switched down. The guy was a downgrade from Tom Brady. So I think we've pretty much dispelled the idea of mate switching hypothesis. It was bullshit to begin with. It was something that David Buss put his stamp of approval on because it was the only thing that could possibly compete against the rising tide of hypergamy, which of course is basically alpha fucks and beta bucks, which breaks down into what? The dual mating strategy. And so when we have the dual mating strategy versus the mate switching hypothesis goes off and crawls under a hole and dies. But we can't have dual mating strategy be the winner. Now we're going to pivot into assortative mating, which of course is something that the red pill and at least in the seduction communities have been talking about since the mid 2000s. Again, it's based on social constructionism, which anytime you want to put human mating strategies into a context, the context you should never use if you're an evolutionary psychologist is social constructionism. It's got to have some sort of biological underpinnings or some sort of evolutionary underpinnings. But that's all really what assortative mating is about. Like they'll say, well, according to this chick right here, she should not be with a short king. Like should get with like. If she's pretty short to begin with. But like, let's just say she's 5'9", she should get with a guy who's 5'9" too, or above. Why do women prefer that in the first place? If she's an outlier because she got with a quote unquote short king, right? Short king. Notice that they have to add king onto that because the woman knows it's pandering. It's patting little boy on the head kind of thing. That's okay. I still appreciate you for other things other than your height, but height was important to me. And so if I didn't get that, at least I've got other value added aspects of you that made up for the height. Maybe a lot of money, maybe a 6-pack abs. I don't know. Maybe he just rocks your world in bed. I don't know, whatever it is. But according to assortative mating, she should never have got with that guy. According to assortative mating, if that guy doesn't make as much, you want to know, assortative mating falls apart when you look at the socioeconomic aspects of mating strategies. If assortative mating was a thing, then women would not seek out guys who make at least 38, 60% more than they do. That wouldn't be an issue. If a woman, it wouldn't make any difference if there was if it was assortative mating. If she made 100,000 and he made 100,000, then that should be the ideal situation. But it's not. We can see that statistically. Women want anywhere between 38 and 60% more, 68, something like that, percent more their husbands to make that much more money, because that puts men into a state of authority. He makes more money than I do. I can look up to him. I want to admire him. Women cannot look up to a man who is their equal. That's what assortative mating proposes. It's the perfect ideal when it comes to egalitarian mating, when it comes to egalitarian marriages. That's one more hypothesis that is going to die a very ugly death next to dual mating strategy, which we just simply don't want to accept. Although they dance around it, they've already admitted it and talked about it within the first 10 minutes of this video.